I'd like to just, share with you very quickly that recently a survey was conducted by the name of Annual Status of Education Report, Pakistan, 2011, over about 147,000 children. And the test was only for grade 2 level, English, Urdu, Sindhi, and arithmetic. And we had only 47% children who could read the Urdu text, grade 2. This is 5 to 16 years old children. It was a household-based survey across 85 districts of the country. And 26% could read the English level 2 text, and only 24% could do the 3-digit division. Now, when we have that kind of a concrete evidence in front of us, it just makes the things slightly more complex when it comes to project citizenship, or addressing the issue of the constructs of identity and ideology of the past 66 years, and how do we go about addressing this conundrum. And I think it is very important for us in trying to become equipped with that capability to address this issue. We need to address the whole crisis of the curriculum as it perpetuates irrelevance and passive learning. And now we know, all of us sitting here in this crowd at the Karachi Literature Festival 2012, that we are all, and our children are preparing for a world that we cannot imagine. Changes are so rapid that obsolescence is really the order of the minute. Now, in that is the challenge of how do we address issues of textbooks and curriculum. And I think we do need to, as I think Faisal did a great job of taking us back to where the bog is created, and that is sort of going back way into the 19th century, but I would say just even way back into the 18th and 17th century, where the disconnects begin to happen. But look at the more recent disconnects. We have from 2000 to 2009 almost an incremental, and even currently, an incremental addressing of curriculum reforms in Pakistan. So from 2000 to 2006 and 7, we have a little bit of a curriculum change here and there, and new textbooks keep coming. And this is, by the way, in response to the SDPI and the books that we were referring to in terms of the challenges that were brought by the Pakistani citizens to this subtle conversion through the curriculum. But the government could not address this wholeheartedly. But in 2006 and 7, the national curriculum came about. Now, the national curriculum was a change, and whole team sat together, I think many from this room also, who were involved seriously in the redesign of the national curriculum, 2006 and 7. So from Kachi or preschool to grade 12, every subject went through a major change. Now, why that is important to us is because a book like this one, these books that did come out, they are still on the website, they started giving us new terminologies such as standards-based curriculum, learning outcomes-based curriculum, and we did have definitions of new learning outcomes, and actually these curriculum frameworks are not that bad, But here is the rub, that in spite of this, and in spite of the national textbook and learning materials policy and whatever and plan, 2007, at the same time as this curriculum comes out, there is a decision to deregulate the textbooks. All of us, like Amina, and I think way back in 1992, this fight has been going on to deregulate the textbooks. Let the private sector produce the textbooks. But this action plan of 2007 made it so complex that no publisher worth their salt want to create an investment which will probably never be redeemed, and never have the textbooks, although people like Amina did go on and on and on. And we had some new textbooks produced, which mercifully are being used by the Sindh Education Foundation, but that is a very small part of the population that does have access to those books. However, we had that, the national curriculum, 2007, but this is 2012 today, and we have just inching of the implementation of this national curriculum. What we do have instead is that we have books that are coming out which are not, for example, following, because in this they have said what the chapters should look like. For example, there should be one section which is on prose, one section, this is the Urdu curriculum, one should be on poetry, another section should be on language and so on and so forth. And they've even given you some headings as well, what kind of topics to pick. However, what comes out in these textbooks, and I will just take one leaf out of it, just from the contents. This is a Singh textbook, board book for class 5, Urdu ki 5वीं kitab, and it starts with Hamd. This is Urdu class 5. It says totally different things here, but the textbook writers mafia cannot get out of that mindset that was earlier described by the speakers that preceded me. So it starts with Hamd, maaf kar dene wali nabi, ummat ki afzal tareen khatun, Hazrat Usman Ghaniyullah, Nath, and so on. Now when you have this sort of, this is an Urdu book. So what is this? And it doesn't get finished there. We then have the 18th Amendment, mercifully, and we finally, the children of Pakistan, have the right to education 25A, which says all children between the ages of 5 to 16 will have compulsory education. Great. It's been almost 23 months. We still don't have any law on that, and everybody is foot dragging because they know where will the resources come from. The good story news was the right to education and the devolution of education to the provincial to the provinces. But the problem is that the provinces now are saying that we do not have the money to implement, and we do not have the capacity to implement also. If we look at the provincial institutional regimes for creating curriculum and textbooks and challenging all of this, we have the Bureau of Curriculum, the textbook boards, the teacher training institutions, pre and in-service. We have the National Education Assessment System and the Provincial Education Assessment Systems and the boards of intermediate and secondary education. And then we know that we have the many task forces that have been set up. So the textbooks are really stuck in an irrelevance regime, and also in an emaciated citizenry, which is why I think Faisal's starting point is so very powerful. And in fact, in spite of all these innumerable exercises to create new textbooks, we have a massive disconnect between the national curriculum and what we have as textbooks. We have problems of factual language errors, content, irrelevance, misinterpretation, compounded by what Zubaida said very nicely, teachers who do not teach, and really far away from the DNA of our children, and Pervez would know that better. Nature had really programmed our children to be highly liberated as we see them, but we shackle them in schools, homes, and society. Our children demand and deserve better. I'd just like to say that we had a Children's Literature Festival, 2011. 22,000 children came to that festival with Amina there, and we had a segment there which was speakers' corners for children from 5 to 18 years of age. Bol ke lab azad hain tere. And in that, what the children had to say, I wish we were hearing that. And I'm going to read just very briefly from one of the girls who had put this down. She's from grade 10. My journey has been dull, filled with despair and shame, and the innumerable faces that I could blame. When I'm gone and amongst you no more, dismiss me with words, I was gone because I came. My contributions meant little to you, for never was I one to reach for the stars, but I pleased my haggard and tired conscience by believing that I did my part. And it goes on. It's an extremely sad narration, and there were so many narrations and as well as poetry in this festival that we heard. But is anyone listening to these children? We also had a section on textbooks, opening or closing minds, and where the children complained and they said, and this is children not from the ONA level schools, these were the children from the government schools who said, you know, how the particularly social studies, Urdu, English and mathematics, they put them off entirely. They complained of excessive use of religion, ideology, direct or indirect bigotry, poor gender-based, biased imagery, repetitive lessons across grades, and this is their words, an excessive use of war stories without enhancing their language competencies. Now, this is what endorses all our researchers are saying and what our speakers have said. So we have a real tragedy at hands. We have social studies books in grade 6, which talk, and we all get very happy when we say a social studies book for grade 6, which has something on South Asia, and which has something on children in South Asia. I immediately opened and said, what does this textbook say on children of South Asia? And it is exactly that. Nothing about the real children of South Asia. It just stereotypes them. What does a child, and they never called, by the way, India, they always call Bharat, and say, what is a Bharati child believe in? What is a Bharati child wear? And what is a Bharati child eat? And by the way, when they come to sports, it's never about girls' sports. It's always about boys' sports, whether it's a boy in Maldives or in Pakistan or wherever. And so, I am saying, so can we dare to act? Can we all over here? Karachi Literature Festival should not be just taken as an act of celebrating literature and coming together. I think it should be seen as a platform of protest and a platform for action. I think today, because of the devolution and the 18th Amendment, before, by the way, the 20th Amendment takes it over and does something else to it, I think it may be worth our while to ponder that because there is a capacity gap, and because there is a will gap, because also there may be a resource gap, the state is very happy to take any support from anyone. All of us who are here today, some of us are very serious people who do believe in taking action and go about doing our businesses. And I think the business today is writing alternate textbooks. And writing textbooks which make a difference, and we must act now. We have a window of opportunity. Why can't books that I think Fawzia had, and I think so many beautiful textbooks and other books that have come out today in this festival, like Amaya and the Banyan Tree, contributions from the amazing 140 odd authors and poets. Why can't we find that space and interpretations in textbooks, the alternate textbooks, presented to them? I don't even mind this format, which is not bad at all, because nobody reads it, because it's difficult to implement, to do it in such a way that we can find space and interpretations and connections to time, to our present, future, and past, for relevance, pleasure, imagination, and well-rooted national and global citizenry. I think KLF presents a grand opportunity of authors under one umbrella. I think a group of authors from here can get together on a textbook writing project. I think what today we heard from the Baghairat Brigade, they need to create a populist platform for having satire on textbooks and having enough people, young people, be mobilized so they will also become writers of textbooks, and we overcome the inertia of the system, the machinery of the public sector, and also the citizens of this country. I end with that. It's an opportunity not to be missed.